get up 1-0, and I'm thinking he's coming in. If he comes inside with the cutter, I got to swing. And sure enough, he came inside with a cutter, forced myself to swing. And I remember the ball being up there, and I felt like the ball was in the air forever.
Are we ready? Eugenio? Joshua?
We are ready.
Are we ready to change people's lives? So excited. Tonight,
on the tracks.
what? Tonight, Eugenio, Joshua, we get to talk to Vernon Wells again. And we get to see Ricky Romero, talk to Jay Stenhouse. We've got our kids coming in to ask questions. So excited. I love these conversations. Welcome, everybody. Hi, good people. So excited to be here. Another district, chaotic, crazy, awesome conversations that matter. We have these conversations, these rich conversations with these amazing people. And in those conversations, you learn. And the intent is to get you to think. I'm so excited by the questions we're going to talk about tonight. We're talking about pressure. So tonight is a district event in partnership with the Art of Leadership, Eugenio Matos and Joshua Campbell. And we're going to talk about pressure and what your ability to perform under pressure. We have a poll. We're going to ask a question. We're gonna get you guys to think about how you perform under pressure. Ricky's gonna share stories about how he performs under pressure, what he does. Jay Stenhouse, when you've got 100 media standing in front of you, and you've got microphones, and you are a conduit to talent, how do you handle that pressure? And the most important thing to realize here, you guys, is that pressure is a key differentiator between top performers and mediocrity. And it's the people that cross the line, the people that step up to the plate, the people that understand how they perform under pressure. Those are key skills. Tonight, we're going to learn those key skills and habits, those lessons that will help you, not just in baseball. This isn't just about baseball. It's about how you transition in life, how you actually go to interview for a job, or how you start a business, how you perform under pressure at work, how you have different relationships that put you under pressure. All of that is about pressure. I'm so excited. Pressure and expectations and respect, that's what we're going to talk about. Are you ready, Josh?
Oh yeah, I'm ready to go.
Eugenio, you bringing your energy?
Super ready. I'm so excited for tonight.
Super. Jay Stenhouse at the cottage. Look at the body position, framing him out. Ricky Romero. Wow. You just look too good for, look at the sun. You know how we got the sun angling in? Hi, Ricky. It's nice to see you again.
To see you too. How are you?
Amazing.
Yeah.
So last time we talked to Ricky Romero, he was so cute when he brings himself in on camera. He says, I'm nervous. You know, this is a great example of where you go under pressure. Ricky Romero, really? Everybody is scratching their head. Really? Ricky Romero's nervous? Jay Stenhouse, it's nice to see you, hon. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's because you were so good last time that your stories were so rich and full of so many nuggets, so many gems of learning that we needed you back.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure.
So tonight we hear from Naya, who's a 14-year-old, and 18-year-old Ben Adams. We've got questions from the talent that we're going to bring in. And it's questions that will help us learn. But before we get to the questions, we're going to go through a few stories. And before we go through a few stories, we're actually going to do a bit of a poll. Again, where do you go under pressure? Thinking about where you go under pressure. Learning the lessons and tricks, the strategies that Ricky Romero has developed, or that Jay Stenhouse or Vernon has developed, or Ben Adams. These are key strategies that you can take away, write them down. So if you don't have a pen and a paper to codify this information, to remember it, go get a pen and a paper because the content will be spectacular. All right, key differentiator. I'm going to come to Vernon when he arrives. And if he can't, he's a bit late. He's about 5 minutes late. Jay, what I want to talk about the first segment of this before we go to the pool is how do you leverage pressure? Because pressure, remember, is a key differentiator between a top performer and somebody who stands still and freezes, or somebody who chooses not to lean in. How do you leverage the pressure to move you forward? How do you not go into your paleo cortex that makes you feel like you want to poop your pants and run to the bathroom? How do you do that? How do you manage through that? I don't want you to answer that question yet. We're going to go to a poll. I'm so excited. You're so excited. We're going to go to a poll first. And Ricky, you need to answer the poll. Wait a minute. It's all anonymous, but you got to answer the poll. Where do you go under pressure? How do you respond to pressure? Come on, Ben Adams, lean in. Do you overthink and crumble in self-doubt? I have given up on individual sports because I crumble in self-doubt. I need my teammates around me. Nobody can see your answer. So if you say crumble in self-doubt, like I'm admitting to, it is very, very interesting to see where people are coming in. Do you feel panicky, but your heart beats faster? Do you notice that you get very excited? Or alternatively, to rise up, do you feel very powerful? Or if you're really good, are you able to see very clearly? Be super calm. It's like everything. There are 50,000 screaming fans, but you don't hear them. You can sense nothing. You just focus on the task at hand. All right, I'm ending the poll. Let's see what we got. Most people feel a little bit panicky. That's a key piece. Understanding where you go under pressure, understanding when you are under pressure, it brings out the best or the worst in you, in business, in baseball, answering the questions of the media conglomerate that's standing in front of you. Pressure, understanding pressure. All right, I'm going to ask Jay, please, while we wait for we want to share the results. Okay, let's share the results. See, everybody's got a little bit of panicky. That's okay. I feel panicky. When you step up to the plate, how do you feel? How are you leveraging that energy to be a positive energy, not a negative energy? These are really key questions to ask yourself, whether you're starting out in your career or you're starting out and you're wanting to make the national team, or you want to make the majors, or you just want a job. These are key things to pay attention to. All right, I'm going to stop sharing, and then I am going to come to Jay Stenhouse. Jay Stenhouse, please share with us the information, your insight, your wisdom.
Happy to. I related to a few things in that poll. The one being panicky, having a little bit of self-doubt, feeling a little nervous. And then I learned how to get to a place of calm so they could perform. It can be very intense. And when I was younger, I wanted to get experience. I wanted to be able to learn how to do those things. So when I was the assistant in the department, I wasn't the number one guy. I didn't mediate press conferences. I wasn't the one speaking in front of everybody. That would have been Howie Starkman, who was there forever. So to get experience, I volunteered and I went to go work for the American League during the playoffs in 1998. It was the New York Yankees against the Texas Rangers in the division series. I'm down in down in Texas. And I ask around and there's no league PR people, there's special event people. They didn't have enough people back then. So they had some at other series and preparing for other things. First game goes no problem. And for one of the first times I mediate the post-game media conference, introduce Joe Torre and just point out who gets to ask the questions and wrap it up, last question, and then the stars of the game. The next day I get pulled aside early in the day and they said, we're going to do a media conference before the game. Darryl Strawberry has to make it. We're making an announcement about Darryl Strawberry. He's been diagnosed with cancer. We want you to run it. The Yankees PR guy is going to be busy doing other things. So we want you to mediate the press conference. So they announced the press conference. Everybody's there. And yeah, I'm a little nervous because there's tons of cameras. The New York media, national media, everybody's there. So I step up to the microphone and I have my notes. I'm prepared, of course, because I know what I want to say. I know who I have to introduce. I want to be short, sweet, and get my point out. Know my messages, what we talked about last week. And I'm just about to start, and I'm at the podium, and I said, we're just about to begin. And a lady in the front row, a New York writer who is sitting next to another New York writer, turns and says to the guy, and I could hear, he goes, oh, he's nervous. Hearing my voice. And to be honest, that was the best thing I could hear because it taught me about myself, because all of a sudden I was like, I was ticked off. I was like, I'll show you what I'm like. I'll show you how I'm going to run this and be extremely professional, especially with it being such a heavy topic. The media didn't know what the topic was yet. And I felt a huge responsibility, especially when it's something that important. So then I just stepped up to the mic and said, okay, we'd like to begin. Could you keep the noise down? I introduced everybody and I was fantastic. But the reason I tell that story is I learned what motivates me. I learned that somebody saying you can't do something fires me up. And I learned that about myself. And from then on, I had other instances in my career that happened, but it was just such a great way to learn about yourself and realize that, okay, here's the pressure. I'm going to meet it. I could have gone many different ways, but that lady in the front row got me going.
So exciting. And I'm wearing my Pink Warriors shirt. As a 2-time cancer survivor, I would say that story had a lot more effect on me than you'd ever imagine. So it was a lesson and it was inspiring. Okay, but here we're going to change it up a little bit. Before Eugenio's going to introduce people, because the last time Joshua Suit Campbell and Eugenio Matos introduced Ricky, I think it made him cry. He felt all warm and fuzzy inside. But before we get to the Eugenio's going to introduce officially everybody, I want to come to Vernon. Vernon, your brow's furrowed. Are you okay?
Yeah, can you see me? Yeah, we're good.
We are excited to see you. We are excited to see you. And when you smile, you light up the world. I
wouldn't go that far.
Oh, come on. I know this. I know this about you. You kind of pretend to be this secret guy, secret spy-like guy. And then really when you smile and you like people, you lean in.
Yeah, I like to be a sniper one day, but that's the next story.
Okay, that kind of scares me, Vernon.
Yeah.
We're talking about pressure, Vernon, and I wanted to talk to you about a story. I've worked a 15-hour day. I'm in the luxury suites. It is a sold-out 50,000 seat auditorium at the Rogers Center, and it is extra innings, and it's I think we were down by 1. Extra innings, down by 1. Bottom of the 10th, 2 outs. Place goes quiet, dead quiet. Vernon Wells steps up to bat. And you hit this home run and the place goes wild. I felt like I felt like the World Series, Vernon. The entire place erupts. The entire place erupts. I swear the energy from that hit electrified the entire city. Vernon, I want to know, when you're walking up to the plate, how do you handle that pressure? How do you turn that pressure into performance? How do you compartmentalize, navigate your way through the screaming fans? I think you heard my son Jamie yell like, Vernon! He was your biggest fan. How did you navigate through that to compartmentalize, to see, and to perform? What were some of the things that you did?
Well, I think it's being ready for the moment. I think is a big thing. It's the preparation that you put in to be ready for whatever moment it is. I'm sure if you're talking about that many people, then it limits it to the Yankees or the Red Sox being in town on a weekend. So if I remember it correctly, there was one moment where there was a tie ball game going into the 10th, and they brought Mariano Rivera into a game. And obviously facing the greatest closer ever to ever do that job, your mind has to be fully focused on what your approach is, what you're trying to execute in that at bat, and fully understanding what the person on the other side of you is going to try to attack you with. So him coming into the game, I've already played everything out in my mind. He's going to throw a cutter. If he throws his cutter away, I got to take it. If he throws his cutter in, I got to force myself to swing at it. And if he happens to throw a sinker in, I hope that I don't swing at it because it's just going to break my bat, or it's going to hit me and I'm going to look stupid at the same time. So I can look at all that and have that all going in my head until I get in the box, and then I'm looking for one pitch. And with him, he was different than any other pitcher, because when you typically see something inside, as far inside as he likes to throw it when he wants to start his cutter inside on righties, typically you're always taking. So he's one of those guys you just have to force yourself out of your comfort zone and be willing to take the chance and trust the approach that you've put into play. And I remember he threw me a cutter away. I took it and I just thought to myself, and making those adjustments pitch to pitch. And we can kind of talk about adjustments that we make as hitters. If you kind of go through I'm going to adjust game to game. And then as you progress, I'm going to adjust bat to bat. And then as you progress, I'm going to adjust pitch to pitch. And that's when things start to really click for a hitter. But in that moment, get up 1-0. And I'm thinking he's coming in. If he comes inside with the cutter, I got to swing. And sure enough, he came inside with a cutter, forced myself to swing. And I remember the ball being up there, and I felt like the ball was in the air forever, because I hit it and I knew I barreled it, but I didn't know if I hit it too high. So it's just, hopefully it has enough legs, but it seemed like the ball was in the air forever. And as soon as the ball went up, I'm thinking to myself, did I just hit a walk-off homer against the best closer ever? And I feel like I had that thought for 2 minutes, even though it wasn't that long. But I remember circling the bases, and that was my only thought was, this is a really cool moment, because he's the best to ever do it. And he's walking off the field and I'm jogging around the bases. And it was one of those moments you should never forget.
So you talked about flexibility. You talked about, adjustments. So these are the key lessons before we go to Eugenio for the official introduction. You talked about adjustments and calculating. What I hear is that you're calculating every different piece of information. I'm sure Ricky does that too, and I'm sure Jay does that too. Like you spend time preparing and thinking through every different scenario. Eugenio, I'm going to stop talking. I could talk with these guys all day. Okay, so talk to me. Eugenio, introduce people. You are the most amazing person to bring sunshine to the world.
So let's officially introduce some of our guests. Obviously, you guys just heard from the 3-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glove winner, 1-time Silver Slugger. To this date, this gentleman holds some of the best offensive numbers wearing a Blue Jays uniform. For me personally, one of my favorite players growing up, coming from the Dominican Republic, having a little bit of Canadian influence in my life. My family really look up to you, Vernon, and it's just truly an honor to have you here back again for round number 2. But
thank you.
That stuff aside, man, probably the most impressive thing for me, at least, is how you became that leader, that go-to guy in the clubhouse. But you were also that go-to guy for the city where you were there, for the city of Toronto. So very, very impressive overall character. I would say truly, truly an honor to have you on this call to talk about something so precious and something that, for me as a coach, we work on these things pretty much every day. We go to practice. And it kind of came up naturally, organically during our last call, Vernon, but that theme of pressure that Nance was talking about. And I'm curious to know, for you, man, what are the habits? I know you said preparation plays a big role into it, but I'm just wondering, what are the habits that you do? We hear this term a lot on the baseball field, and it's slowing the game down. You slow the game down. What are the habits that you have to kind of zone out from that 50,000 people that Nancy was talking about, screaming your name, and just focus on the task that's at hand, right? Like Mariano Rivera's coming into the game. You need to come through for your team with 2 outs. What is it exactly that you do? What are you thinking about coming from the on-deck circle to the box?
I mean, it's not, for me, and the way I approach things is the worst thing that can happen is I make an out. When you're fully comfortable in understanding what the worst thing possible that can happen, and that is not something that drives fear into you, then you're where you need to be. It's when you start worrying about, if I fail, what happens, or what's going to happen to me if I fail. Like, it's in baseball, if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're an all-star at the big league level. It doesn't make any sense in any other walk of life. So understanding what failure means, being able to live in that world, live and be productive even when things are going poorly. You'd be amazed at how many guys get to the big leagues and struggle with that, and it's natural. You have some guys who absolutely fear nothing and are willing to do everything possible to succeed, and those are the guys that you see that put up ridiculous numbers, that stay in the game for a long time. And there's a lot of sacrifice that takes place, but when you're able to just be in the moment, have your plan of what you set out to do in that at bat or in that game, and you have to live with whatever the result is. And when you're comfortable with that, you can accomplish so much more than you've ever imagined, because most people don't actually experience some successes that they're putting themselves on that pattern for, is because they're afraid to fail. And if you're afraid to fail, if you're afraid to take chances, you're not going to achieve what you can possibly achieve with whatever abilities you've been given.
Yes. Fear is like the number one most debilitating behavior. Fear, how it gets in your head. Sorry, Eugenio, I know that you wanted to respond to that.
No, I think you're right on. That's kind of what I want to point it out. It's almost impossible sometimes to zone out those negative thoughts coming in, especially leading up to the moment. But I'm also curious, Vernon, so for yourself, if things don't go out the way we want it to, so if we would have had popped out in that situation instead, something that I try to communicate to all of our guys too is how to pass that page quickly and just be ready for your next opportunity. How do you flip that negative thoughts that are coming in to positive thoughts so you're ready for the next time?
Yeah, I tell kids all the time, it's you're going to fail. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Whatever you do, whatever level you're trying to do it at, it's going to happen. What you do with that failure kind of defines who you are as a person, as a young man, as a young woman, as an athlete, whatever it may be. It's just learning from it. We have to be able to learn from it, understand why we did what we did, what we can do better, and then move on. Because especially in baseball and in certain walks of life, if you continue thinking about the failure that you just had, and you continue that on, before you know it, you're going to be 10 at bats into it, and you haven't made an adjustment because you're still thinking about that time you failed 10 at bats ago, instead of learning from it, moving on, letting it go, and then trying to be better because of whatever mistake you made or whatever pitch you swung at or whatever it may have been. All we can do in life is learn from those mistakes and be better because of them, instead of using them as a reason why we continue in that same struggle.
So many gems, Eugenio. Like, so, what failure means, asking yourself what failure means. I can't wait to hear what a pitcher thinks from Ricky. I can't wait to hear these stories. Joshua Soup Campbell, is this I'm just going to say kid, this talent. I teach these grad students, and Joshua Campbell, I walk into this classroom and this electrical energy bulb hits me, and it's Josh Campbell. He's this positive, relentlessly positive, incredibly curious individual who coaches baseball, who's passionate about the kids, works with Eugenio to change lives. Joshua, do you want to introduce Ricky Romero?
Absolutely. Something I'm so thrilled to do. So obviously we've got Ricky Romero here. So, we're talking about someone who's absolutely no stranger to pressure situations and massive expectations. He was a guy who grew up in a neighborhood ridden with gangs, violence, and from those attributes came an outstanding athlete who learned to battle adversity. He had to hustle to survive. He became the first pitcher drafted in 2005, drafted to the Jays. His scouting report said, very intense on the mound. It keeps hitters off balance. Though it started off with a where in the hell is Toronto, it ended with all-star honors and reaching ace status. He was known to have some of the nastiest pitches. Ricky Romero was a guy who, frankly, worked his ass off. Through a slew of injuries, Ricky never stopped. In 2017, he even had a voice recording that would wake him up in the morning and say, I'm going to pitch in the big leagues in 2018. With this kind of a work ethic, it's remarkable. He has some of the best ability to handle the biggest pressure situations, and ultimately has an incredibly inspiring story. Ricky, I'm so happy to have you on this call right now. We have so many kids who are thrilled to have you here. How are you doing, Ricky?
I'm good, man. I'm really, really pumped to be back doing this again with you guys. I think last time I did it, I texted Nancy and I was like, wow, like if you ever do one of these, just invite me back. I'm in. It's just, you just felt the energy and the passion of it, and I think I went to sleep like really good, and it was one of those things where I got to talk to my wife about it, and she's like, wow, so maybe one day, maybe we'll get both of us together and do something like this, because I'm sure you guys would love to hear from her too. So
everybody, if anybody doesn't know, Ricky Romero's married to Carol Lang, and I'm a huge fan of Carol Lang. She was a superstar in our soccer community in Canada, and even though he completely didn't mention her name.
we'll save that story forever, because Jay has something to do with that one. So
That's right.
I can't wait to hear that. That's awesome. So we're going back to pressure here. Ricky, I actually wanted to echo something. It's very similar to Vernon's story, but just on the flip side. So there's a lot of quotes from you in 2011 when you say you never forgot that 2011 sold out opening day crowd chanting your name. I looked up the stat, there was 45,512 people who were chanting your name that day. Talk about a pressure moment, a sold out crowd, everyone's looking at you. Do you remember what you were thinking as you stood there? Obviously in retrospect, it's like, wow, what an amazing feeling. But in that moment, what did you do with that pressure?
It's funny because I was thinking about that. I was like, I wonder if that's going to come up, and I'm glad you did ask that. But it was one of those things where, for me, I was able to, there's the pressure of life, and then there's the pressure of sports, and I always remembered where I came from, and the pressure of people living paycheck to paycheck, people dealing with real life problems. Now you flip it on the sports side and baseball side, the pressure of going out there and having to go perform in front of 45,000 on opening day. So I was always able to separate both, like Vernon said, if you failed, it wasn't the end of the world. What's the worst that's going to happen? That manager is going to come and take the ball away from me, and I'm going to feel shitty, walking back to the dugout for not performing. So I just remember that day, and like Vernon said, a lot of those things, you just replay them. And when I got announced to be the opening day starter, I started thinking, and I was like, whoa, because I already had been part of 2 opening days in Toronto, obviously not as a starter, but I saw everything that goes on, the party that goes on right before it. And when it was my turn, it was like, all right, I'm going to start, I had the chance to work with a really good sports psychologist in Ken Revisa, who passed away a couple of years ago. And he was amazing. He kind of guided me through college and in learning how to slow the game down, how to do mental imagery and night before, and start putting yourself in those situations, and taking the bullpens and literally like saying, okay, I got to put myself in game-like situations here so that when it does come in a game, I'm ready for it. And I just remember, you know, that day waking up, going to the stadium, obviously. And then when I got dressed, like, I'm pretty calm, you know, before starts, I was always pretty calm. I like talking, you know, there's some guys that don't like to be bothered at all. And once I got dressed, got stretched out, and I was ready to go, I remember walking through the back tunnel out the left field side. And I just remember right there, I was like, all right, it's time to turn it on, you know? And I remember walking out, and when I walked out, it was like the crowd started chanting my name, and it was just, my heart was like beating so fast, and I didn't fear it. It was more just the anxiousness of like, wow, this is it, you know, this is it. And so when I got done warming up, and, you know, we run out to the field, there's a clip, if you ever check it out, of that game where I call out my catcher after I'm done warming up, my warm-up pitchers. I call out JP, who was the catcher at the time, and I say, hey, I like covered my mouth, and I was like, it's time to turn my swag on. And he flips the switch on my shoulder, and he walks away. And just to, like, that's how much fun I was having, just to think of that. Like, at that moment, you're like, I'm about to pitch opening day, you know, something I've dreamed of, East LA kid, all eyes are on me. As a pitcher, everything happens. The game starts when you throw the ball, you know, everything happens off of you. So to have that, like, thinking about it now, to have that in my mind going like, who the hell calls the catcher over, just to say that. And he thought I was hurt. He like walked out. He's like, you okay? And I'm like, let's go. It's time. And he just like flipped it. And then he went back, and he kind of was like, I saw him through his mask, like laughing. And then the rest is history. You know, it was just like, I've put in all the work. Now it's just go out there and have fun and enjoy this moment that I've dreamed of. And that was kind of it. And obviously it worked out for us. We had a good game, and you know, to have the ball taken from you by the manager and to be walking out to a standing ovation of 45,000, I mean, goodness, it's just a moment I'll never forget.
Aren't you
That's
lucky?
awesome.
You know, Joshua, what I heard, the nuggets that I heard, you know, the mental imagery. And again, it isn't just about baseball. What we hear from Vernon, what we hear from Jay and Ricky, it's about, you can't do it if you can't see it. And you imagine it. You imagine yourself being successful in the job interview, being successful at bat, being successful pitching. You have to see it to believe it. And that goes to players, that goes to everybody. The other piece that I heard is, find yourself someone who cares. You know, somebody cared about Ricky and his success. And warming up, like, that's practice. What we heard from Vernon, nothing replaces hard work. What you see in Jay Stenhouse every single game, and I'm sure Ben Adams as well, from Nia Levine, who's going to join us, from Paul, all the other kids, hard work. It's about differentiating yourself, pushing yourself. And then here's the key, finding something that makes your heart beat faster. When Ricky walks out there and his heart's going like this, just like interviewing these guys makes your heart beat faster, or coaching baseball, Eugenio, makes your heart beat faster. I'm going to introduce Jay Stenhouse officially now. Jay Stenhouse, the guy that worked at the Toronto Blue Jays for 34 years, the guy that made a huge difference in so many people's lives, the guy that makes people feel special. And it doesn't matter if you're George, the security guy, or if you're Ricky and Vernon, or if you're Paul Beeston or Paul Godfrey. Jay Stenhouse, integrity, honesty, trust. He values people. People value him in return. Jay, I want to talk stories about pressure, and I want to talk stories. Actually, you know what? Let's zag a little bit. Pressure, because where do you go under pressure? Where you go under pressure, where I see you go under pressure, is you're consistently respectful. Like, you are respectful to Ricky, you're respectful to Vernon, or to any of the other players that come into the ballpark, any of the other players that come into the club. How do you do this? What are some of the strategies that you use to connect with people, to communicate in languages that they understand and feel valued?
Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction. And I'll just quickly say, it's easy to connect with guys like Ricky and Vernon because they're quality individuals and they treat people right. And, you know, never had any problems with them. There are people that you need to work to connect to, people that it's your job to communicate with, deal with, whether it's players, whether it's media, whether it's other people within the organization. I think the number one thing you have to do, and maybe it's just the old adage that my father taught me, is life is a two-way street. Treat people the way you want to be treated, not treating them the way they treat you, but treat them the way you want to be treated. And that's with respect and knowing your values.
Yeah.
And for me, there are things I won't do, and there's ways I won't treat people no matter how they treat me. I've had people yelling at me about a player or about a media member, and they can be totally offside, but I have to be true to myself and protect my values. So I think that's the one thing that's allowed me to have that integrity, allowed me to keep that composure no matter what the situation. And I think Ricky and Vernon are two guys that keep their composure incredibly well because they're grounded and they know what they believe in, and they're not going to change that because of the person they're speaking with or a large group of people they're speaking with. So I think if you focus on yourself, control yourself, you can handle a lot of those situations.
You talk about give and take. You talk about the opportunity to give and take. It is so much of an important lesson to understand how to give and take. It's not just about taking. It's about giving first and then taking. And you talk about personal brand, how Vernon and Ricky and Jay Stenhouse know themselves. You know, there's a story that Phil Jackson writes about in Legends of a Hardcore Warrior. And he says, so many people come to the first day of practice spending energy being somebody that they're not. And you guys understand your centers. This is way off topic, but you know, understanding who you are, who Ricky Romero, Vernon Wells, Jay Stenhouse are at their core, and respect, Jay, is what I see consistently with your personal brand. It doesn't matter who you're dealing with. You don't use ego or title or power. You are constantly under pressure, constantly respectful. And I see that in Vernon and I see that in Ricky too. Eugenio, you're going to introduce Ben Adams, who's on his way to superstardom. Ben Adams, Eugenio, do you want to introduce the next superstar?
I'm super excited, Ricky, Vern, and Jay, to introduce you guys. I've only known him for a very short time, but he is one of our top performers in our program right now. Ben, from a player's perspective, outstanding two-way player. He can be as dominant from the mound as he can be at the hitter's box when he's playing on the outfield. Honestly, from the short time that I've known Ben, what he's shown me so far is a truly unique work ethic, a guy that leaves everything within those foul lines. Ben thrives when he's challenged, and whatever is presented in front of me, he's never going to shy away from that challenge. He's going to try to conquer that right away. Yet the most impressive thing I would say about Ben, it's his ability to impact people around him. Maybe he doesn't know this yet, but it's very easy to see how his impact carries, not just limited to his team and his teammates, but across younger groups, and how they look up to him and they see what he's doing and they notice little things. And to some extent, it's funny to say, but everyone in the program wants to be like Ben. And, you know, what a better example of a true leader, a true role model. And I'm super excited to introduce you guys to Mr. Ben Adams, who's starting his journey. He was supposed to be at St. John's University this summer. Unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, he's been stuck in Canada, but looking forward to him getting there in the fall. Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for introducing me. So, you know, I play baseball a lot. I love that sport. I'm a big family guy. I love being around my family. I play a lot of volleyball. I do track and field, and I love being around the community and helping kids out.
And just to kick it back to that theme of pressure, let's try to kick it back. Let's dial back. Let's take Vernon and Ricky on a time travel trip here. What does pressure look like to you? Obviously, a lot of expectations, having to go to the States, moving from our program, having to move countries, going to different places. Don't really know much about it. I know you did have a good high school experience coming up, but what does that pressure feel like right now for you? You think we can dial it back, see if we can see what that means, what that feels like, what that sounds like right now for you?
Well, I definitely noticed a lot of pressure, like going to the States, that compared to like a Canadian heading to the States, like compared to somebody who's from New York going to school in New York, there's definitely a big difference in that. Like, there's kids coming, they're saying like, oh, look at this Canadian kid, he's coming here, like, what has he got? So you want to live up to that expectation, but like, you got to realize that's got to like get your adrenaline going. It helps you kind of fire yourself up. You want to be that guy. You want to be the new guy who's from somewhere different.
So what I'm hearing, and I'll kick it back to Ricky and Vernon here. What I'm hearing is, as of right now, it's a lot of expectations going around, and you're starting to feel the pressure. But what is it that you do to get on your good headspace, get on the right mindset before you step onto the field? How do you push all those externalities aside and just perform, just be yourself?
Well, one thing I like to think is just never to be satisfied. Like, whenever I show up to the field, I'm always willing to get better. I know that there's one thing, like one step I can go further. One new thing I could learn today, compared to like, there's kids who show up and they're like, oh, I have to be here today. But like, when I get to the ball field, I just every day I want to learn something new. I want to be better.
Ricky, let me kick it back to you. You probably can relate a lot to that feeling of Ben. What was it for you, Ricky? Was it teammates? Like you said, was it having guys like JP around that kept you in the right mind, and not just for that game, right? But you guys talked a lot about the preparation that goes into it. So who are the guys, the mentors, the coaches, the people around you that kept you on track and kept you from hearing all this noise that was happening around you guys?
Oh, I mean, I think you're looking at one of them. He's on this thread right now, Vernon. Obviously when I came up as a rookie, he was one of the leaders on that team from the position player standpoint. But when you have a guy of his caliber and, his stardom in Toronto, and I'm a young rookie, and he puts his arm around you and says, hey, go out there and have fun. Everything's going to be okay. And then I had from, and if you didn't learn anything from him, then you were missing out, because just watching and following him and, just what he did to prepare for a game was just incredible. So when you have guys like that around you, and I'll mention like Scott Downs, and at the time was there, BJ Ryan, who I had right next to me, who's an intimidating guy. But when those guys, and me as a young rookie, they put their arm around you, and it just made it completely easier, and one of the things, that I did was just keep my mouth shut and just keep my ears wide open and just learn. And I think that was key for me, because one, you earn the respect of guys by doing stuff like that, rather than a young rookie coming in thinking, hey, I know it all, I'm not going to take advice from anyone. And I think when a veteran guy sees a guy who's willing to learn, who's out there busting his ass, they love you even more for that. And I had the right leaders helping me out and guiding me, because it's a different transition when you go, when you're used to being in one country and now you're playing for the Toronto Blue Jays in another country. Just the transition of itself of finding a place to live, different money, you know, all those questions that you really didn't know, you know, happen at the big league level because no other team deals with it other than the Toronto Blue Jays. So I had a lot of helping hands, thankfully, and for that, I'll always be grateful.
And Vernon, if we can kick it back, I think that's super cool that you know you were part of that group of guys for Ricky. What was the meaning for you guys? So is that something that was talked about a lot in the clubhouse, you know, having to mentor the younger guys, or was that something that you just, you know, took it upon yourself, the responsibility on, you know, I'm going to put my hand around this amount of guys just to make sure, you know, they move forward, they continue to move forward?
Yeah, I think being a good teammate comes first. I think caring about the people around you more than you care about yourself is what makes a good teammate. I think if you're able to impact even one life, impact even one career, that's saying a lot. So as a player, and being someone who came up with Carlos Delgado and Shannon Stewart and just the guys that I had around me in the lineup, my first full season, they took me under their wing. Carlos Delgado, when I ended up hitting third in front of him my first full season, halfway through my first full season, and the conversations that we would have and the education that I had just going through that process with him, those are things that I picked up on immediately and wanted to be that for the guys that came after him. And that was something that I enjoyed because you build relationships, and when you build those relationships with your teammates, you have more fun together. You have relationships that last a lifetime, and that's what this game's all about.
So guys, if I may ask just all three of you, where do you guys, how would I frame this? Team chemistry when dealing with pressure, where would you guys rank that? You know, is it more important to have a strong man's mindset, or you guys think if you have the right guys around you, it doesn't really matter where your headspace at that point, you as long as you have guys to elevate you and rise to the occasion?
Well, I will say, like, baseball is different than any other sport. Baseball is an individual sport that you hope come together as a team, and your individual battles start to help form a win, because there's nothing anybody can do for you when you're on the mound facing somebody, and vice versa. It's one-on-one battles. There's things you can do that are team-wise when you're moving guys over or bunting or giving yourself up for different things, but you have to you have to want the best for everybody in your lineup, and want the best for everybody in your rotation, and want the best for everybody in your bullpen. So you're cheering everybody on. You're not hoping somebody fails. And I think that's, if you look at some individuals, and there's so many guys that are just concerned about themselves. And we've all played with them. Jay's worked with them, and we don't need to mention their names, but that is part of navigating through that process of this game. Is there's so many different personalities, and understanding how to navigate through that is big. And Ben being a young player, there's different expectations for Canadian players too, because especially if you end up in the Blue Jays organization, organization, there's a lot of pressure that comes with it, because Canadians love their Canadian players. So when you go to the States, you have a whole country behind you that wants to see you make it. And that's different than a lot of countries that are completely different than the US, because US is used to seeing it. Dominican Republic's used to seeing it. Venezuela's used to seeing it, but Canadians stick behind Canadians, and it's fun to see.
Choose who you are. That's what I heard. Like, you gotta choose who you are. It's a choice. I choose to be this solid individual. Jay, how did you navigate through this chaos, the world that you lived in?
Well, I saw many examples of it, and Vernon talked about some of them. I saw some of it, especially in my job, and sometimes asking a player, hey, what are you going to say about that play tonight? We had one pitcher who was fantastic, and it was before Vernon and Ricky ever got on the scene, and he would show up teammates. He'd stare at them when they make errors. He'd mention it post game to the media. And then you'd get other guys who would sit up and say, hey, errors happen in the game. That's part of my job, to pitch around them and to pick my teammate up. And I'm sure if the shortstop makes an error and he hears the pitcher say, no, it's my fault, I should pick up my teammate, he's going to feel a lot better about playing behind that guy the next time. And I also saw it in recent years, something that I don't think Vernon and Ricky got to do, the whole instant replay. Players now have the ability to ask for scoring decisions to be changed. And I would see the pitchers that would sit up and say, that should have been an error on my shortstop, just to protect their own stats. And that kind of stuff gets around. People find out. So that's what being a good teammate is, and taking care of people, in my opinion. And it's looking out for people and treating them the way you'd want them to treat you.
Ricky, I'm going to actually have you answer this question in a different way. We're going to invite people in, and we have a number of different people who want to answer questions. And I can't remember if I said Paul first or Naya first. I think I said Naya. Naya, I'm going to introduce you guys to Naya Levine. Naya Levine is a 14, probably 15-year-old, super talented energy. She lights up the entire world with her incredible conversational ability, and she shines bright. She learns a ton, learns fast. She is a leader on her team. She's learning how to communicate, to be a leader. Naya, do you want to take yourself off mute and say hello?
Hi.
It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
See how confident. It's so important for me personally, for the Ben Adams of the world, all the other people that are going to ask questions, to have the opportunity to build the confidence. Naya, you already have the confidence, and I'm excited. Who are you going to ask a question to tonight?
I have a question for Ron Wells and Ricky Romero.
Okay, Vernon Wells and Ricky Romero. Excellent. Who are you going to go for first? Are you going to go for Vernon first, or are you going to go for Ricky Romero first?
Vernon.
Vernon, okay. Vernon wins the prize. All right.
Okay. So, okay. Vernon, how do you deal with expectations for yourself, criticism from your teammates or the media? And how are you able to continue or overcome your doubts and abilities?
Well, I think for any of us that compete, our expectation level is going to be higher than anyone else's around us, because we want to be the best at what we do. So anything outside of that is just noise, in my opinion. So anything you do in life, as long as you know that I tell kids, as long as at the end of the day, you can lay your head on the pillow and be fully confident in the fact that you did everything you could to get better that day, and you can look at yourself in the mirror and say that, you can sleep well at night. And you need to be that way until you're done doing whatever it is you do. That's the only way you can be the best at it. And when you're doing that, you give your chance to be the best in whatever field you are in. Whatever you're competing in, whatever job you want to be in, it's work, and it's a sacrifice of time, because sometimes it may not be the most fun thing to do, but it may be the most rewarding thing to do. So that is what allows you to be successful, even through your struggles, because you know it's just going to be a small amount of time that you're going to struggle, because you're better than whatever struggle you're going through.
Thank you.
See how, Naya, I just want to point out how Vernon changed his tone a little bit. Like, he became a little softer. This is like personalization of communication, Vernon. You do this very, very well.
Well, thank you.
Naya, you have a question for Ricky. I understand, Naya, that you're injured right now.
Yes.
And you're fighting through some of the chaos that results from injury.
Yeah.
I really hope that you learned something from Vernon's answer, because it really does make a difference. When you go to sleep, how you have to codify hope and motivation and believe in yourself. Life's a journey, and you're amazing, and you will be a superstar. Continue to be a superstar. What's your question for Ricky?
Okay. So I've been injured for like 3 years now with like my Achilles, and now I have bursitis in my ankle, and I've been able to train and enjoy my sport. And I know that you've experienced injuries, and I was wondering how you were able to keep your head up and stay positive during that time.
Well, one thing, it's not easy. I remember the first surgery I had on my elbow. It was the first time I'd ever been hurt like that. And you have to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I did. I overcame that injury quick. I got to clean up. The injuries I dealt with later in my career, I remember when I had my first knee surgery, and then 8 weeks later had to have the second one done on my other knee. I remember waking up after the first one, and I started crying, and I was like emotional about it, because I was like, I can't believe I'm in so much pain. Why is this happening to me? And it was, it was hard for me. And then to have it done 8 weeks later, to have the exact same procedure done on the next knee, it was like, okay, I have to change my attitude, because if I don't, I'm going to be in bed for the rest of my life, it felt like. So every time I went to physical therapy, it was like game time for me. I have to meet certain standards to be where I want to be, so that I can, like Vernon said, so that when I go home and I put my head on that pillow, I say, okay, I accomplished a certain goal that I wanted to accomplish. So you just have to be able to see that light at the end of the tunnel and know that it's going to get better. If I work hard, it's going to get better. Obviously for me, I never got back to the level that I wanted to the big leagues, but I was still able to go out there and, when the Blue Jays released me, I still had an opportunity with the San Francisco Giants. It didn't work out. Obviously, I had dealt with another injury, with an elbow injury, and I kind of started seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. For me, it was like, okay, my career's probably coming to a close, and well, as hard as it was to accept that, I knew it was the reality. For you, obviously, you're really young, you have a whole life ahead of you, and just remember, just see the light at the end of the tunnel. Set goals, when you go to physical therapy, and okay, what do I want to accomplish today? And how do I want to get better? And what am I going to do to get better? And when you do things like that, it makes physical therapy fun, and it makes it challenging. We as athletes, we're built for challenges, and we want to be better. And if you do that, you're just going to set up yourself for success.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The inspiration that you have, you are amazing. I am so proud of you. And it starts with you. It starts with believing in yourself. Like Vernon, Jay, Ricky says. All right, Naya. Go to bed with pride tonight. Remind yourself how amazing you were online, on screen, having the confidence to ask these guys questions. So cute. Josh Campbell, you have another person coming in to ask another question.
Absolutely, I do. Absolutely, I do. I think there's something special about that story, Ricky, that you just shared. When it comes to injuries and baseball, Eugenio knows me. And for guys who do know me, I'm someone who struggled through injuries in my whole upcoming with baseball. And it was sometimes the hardest thing when I was, 15 or 14. I remembered feeling a tear and a pop and not knowing what was going to be next, thinking I was not going to play again, didn't play the next year, found that light at the end of the tunnel, realized I might be able to come back. Did it, came back, got into college ball, and then suffered my labrum, my rotator cuff, AC joint, the whole lot of it, and then nerve damage as well. And I was told that I wouldn't be able to throw a ball again. probably one of the hardest things I ever had to. I get like choked up even thinking about it, but it was one of the hardest things I ever had to hear. But it was so important for me to maintain understanding that that light at the end of the tunnel is what you want to see it as. And at one point for me, it was getting back into the sport no matter what it took. And then on the flip side of that, when I realized it was might have been, you know, the end, time to hang it up, that light at the end of the tunnel turned into coaching. And one way or another, I was able to stay inspired. I was able to stay into the sport that I love. And I was, you know, the injury, if anything, was a platform for me to move forward even further. So I don't know if Naya's still on that call, but that's just a fantastic story from Ricky. And I resonate with it so much. So moving forward too, so now we got another youth athlete to bring onto the stage. So what I want to talk about right now is he's a youth true 5-tool player. His name's Jose Fernandez. He's always out there to prove that he's one of the best players in our organization. And the truth is, Eugenio and I, we both can't help but see so many similarities between him and his character, and Vernon, you as well. Personality-wise, he's the spark of the team. He's always a little more quiet, but he always has a kind of savvy sense of humor. His energy radiates amongst his teammates, and he's always looking to make a massive impact, whether it's inside or outside the ball diamond. So, Jose, there you are, my friend. It's good to see you out here. And
thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my friend. Go ahead and ask your questions.
So my question is for Ricky Romero. So as a pitcher, you kind of feel like when you're on the mound, you kind of have all the pressures on you, and you have to meet a certain expectation. So my question is, what are some things you do to kind of put aside that pressure and kind of perform?
For me, one of the things that really, really worked is, and as cliche as it sounds, it's breathing. When everything was going well for me, it was the breath. It was focusing on the breath. And it doesn't mean just, you know, it's like, I'm here, I'm present. Am I ready to make the commitment to get on that rubber? And once I get on that rubber, it's time to focus on the job that I have. If I'm not ready, then I won't step on that rubber till I'm ready. And that's kind of the routine that I had. You know, I would rub the ball. I would ask myself, are you ready? And in my head, I'd be like, yes, okay, boom. I'd get on that rubber, and it was a deep breath. And then from there, you just work the breath. You learn to work it. You know, did I go too fast, or did I slow the breath down in order to feel myself present? And that's kind of how I dealt with it. I mean, it was you know, the pressure of it, to me, it was excitement, you know, knowing that I can showcase myself in front of 45,000 on opening day, or 45,000 on the road in New York at Yankee Stadium. You know, it was just that when I was on the road and you're pitching at Yankee Stadium in front of that many people, I'm telling myself, I can't wait to hear this stadium completely go quiet after I do what I do. And, you know, and then that's just the intensity that I brought into pitching, and I wanted to be the best. And when I had the ball, I knew I was the best. You know, I mean, maybe not the best in the big leagues, but at the time I felt like I was the best. And yeah, and that's just kind of how I dealt with it. It was just working the breath, slowing everything down, and blocking out that outside noise, because it does exist. You know, people often wonder, like, can you really stop hearing people? Like, how do you block out the noise? And you just get in this, what they call the zone, you know, and it becomes second nature, and you just go out there and you just do what you know what to do, and believe in yourself.
I heard everything. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you definitely hear the boos when, like I said, when you have a game, you hear the boos. Hey, you're on the on deck circle. I was on the on deck circle, but never like you. So,
man, I could hear conversations going on in the outfield, like we're like a midweek game and we're playing the Twins or somebody, and there's nobody in the stands. I can hear just family conversations going on in the outfield. I'm like, what is going on around here?
How do you handle that conversation in the outfield about dinner tonight and stay focused? That's not a question. We don't need to go there.
No, that's real life stuff right there. I just start having conversations with my outfielders. Start playing games in the outfield. That's what really happens in the big leagues. It's depending on who's on the mound. If they're striking out everybody, there's really nothing we're doing in the outfield. It's just we're sitting out there and trying to look pretty. It's just there's nothing that takes place out there. So we're just looking at people in the stands and figuring out, what's for dinner tonight.
But that's part of the adaptability, Vernon. That's what you do. You're adapting. You need to focus.
You're making it sound a whole lot more sophisticated than it really is.
It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny though, because in 2009 when Doc was on the team, you would hear the position players when he was on the mound. They're like, if the ball's hit to me, I'm scared to make an error because he's so intense and he expects the best out of you that you did not want to mess up one of his, awesome games that he would throw every 5th day. So it was funny to hear the position players at times like saying like, like when the ball's hit to me, I'm like hoping that I don't make an error, So I just remember Jose,
if you made a mistake with Doc, he would stare a hole through you. That's a true story.
And this is when Jose was, before he became Joey Bats, he was playing third base, and he would always come in and be like, man, like I'm never nervous for a big league game except when Doc's on the mound and I'm playing third base.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, because there's parts of the brain, your paleocortex or your neocortex, and the panic button when you freeze up like this and you want to perform, but when you're tight like this, you can't perform. It doesn't matter if you're going in for a job interview or if you're involved in a game that Doc's pitching, you want to perform. How do you loosen up? You said breathing. How do you do that, Jay, when you've got a whole, an entire horde of people coming to you? How do you not go like this and freeze?
I think for me, it's learning about yourself, learning what your motivations are, learning what's causing you that angst or causing you that feeling of pressure and expectation. I came to realize after a while, expectation is often what other people believe you can do, and you just don't believe it yet. So you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to get this done? Get my head out of the way and perform. And often you meet those expectations or you surpass what you did before and you progress bit by bit. And I was able to get through the pressure that way because I had to. I didn't want to fail, and I knew what worked for me. I knew what some of my triggers were, and it was that chance to show people I could do it. And back to that reporter in Texas, I'd always remembered that moment.
I'm going to come back to you, Josh, to introduce another kid to have a question, but I want to ask Ben, do you have the ability at 18 years old that you have functioned, you're able to create strategies to keep yourself centered and not freeze up?
Yeah, a lot of just using that breathing strategy. I find that helps a ton. Just take a step off the mound and just take a couple deep breaths. Make sure you take time in between pitches, unless you're feeling in a good groove, you want to keep going. But say you're struggling, you don't want to freeze up and keep going and making the same mistakes. You want to take your time, make those adjustments right away.
Good for you for figuring that out at 18. And this applies, by the way, again, not to baseball. You want to breathe. When I am interviewing with Paul Godfrey, I have to breathe. And those things are simple and they actually work. Even when you're going to bed, do a big deep breath. Josh Campbell, coming to you for the next kid to ask a question, youth to ask a question. And then we're going to go to Paul Vandergreen. So I'm giving you a heads up, Paul. You're going to come after Josh's next talented young superstar.
Absolutely. So what we got next, guys, is a young athlete named Emmett McLean. Now, Emmett McLean, this guy's got to be one of the most talented kids in our program. Just from a sheer ability perspective, he brings, when Eugenio and I talk about Emmett, because we talk about all the players that we coach, but when we talk about Emmett, we think of Marcus Stroman. We think of height don't measure heart. And that's Marcus Stroman. That's his home brand, if you guys don't know that. But when you think of Marcus Stroman, he's a smaller pitcher in the MLB who kicks ass. and he works so hard, and nothing mentally seems to get to him when he's on the mound. And when it comes to Emmett, it's unbelievable. The guy, I can't wait till, you know, he starts to really sprout up, because his potential is through the roof right now. The energy he brings and the effort level every day is outstanding, and the talent matches it. And it's just, he's got bright things in his future. So Emmett, welcome to the show, buddy. And I'm so happy to bring you on here. And I understand you got some questions ready. We're curious to hear.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question for Vernon. So, like, how do you get like in the zone or in that headspace, like late in the game, like for a late at bat in the game? How do you get like in the zone, ready to hit?
For me, those are the easiest moments. Close game, late in games, got a chance to win it, tie it, do something special. Those are the fun moments. Those are the moments where you feel like you're invincible, especially when you're going well, because you know at any point if a pitcher makes a mistake, it's going to get hit hard. And those are the moments that we play this game for. Those are the moments that we live for, because you have a chance to end a game or to do something big in a game that brings people to their feet and rally a team. So it's really a matter of enjoying those moments. It's not allowing the moment to be too big. It's being able to calm yourself, taking those deep breaths and slowing your heart rate. And when you're able to do that, you're able to focus and be prepared for the moment. And once you've done all that, then you just enjoy it, and hopefully what comes out of it is success.
All right, thank you. That was thanks.
There's a video, Emmett, and it's by Amy Cuddy. She's a prof out of Harvard and Stanford, and she talks about small tweaks that you could do to your body language to change your mind. And how what Vernon says, how I could just see Vernon kind of strutting up to he never really strutted, but strutting up to the plate.
It depended on the song. It depended on the song that I was hitting to, what I was feeling going up to the plate. So sometimes it may have internally felt like I was dancing going to the plate, but obviously I wasn't. So that would look a little odd, me doing that.
Okay, so that's actually a really good point, because the song triggers another sense in your mind. What is the song that you walked up and felt the most powerful to?
I don't know. I had a few of them. It kind of depended on what headspace I was in at the time. Whether the fans were pissing me off, I had some songs that would kind of take jabs at them, to be honest. So there was some deeper meanings behind a lot of the songs that I played. I just never really said much about them. So, and then some of them I just loved the beat, and it got me in a headspace, because music can put you in a place where you kind of get you locked in, and you start feeling rhythm of music, and it's then at that point it's like you're in a music video and you're just a highlight reel being played to a music video, and that's when it's fun.
You're in a music video. That is a great.
Yeah. It's a song being played in your highlight reel. That's what it's all about.
You're the star of your own show.
Yes, 30% of the time when things are going well. Yes.
All right, we have another talent that's going to join us. His name is Paul Vandergreet. He is another grad student that is from the George Brown program, and he's the guy who is resilient. He is the most positive, energetic, energizing individual that I've ever met. When he rolled into my class, because he has suffered some significant challenges in his life, when he rolled into my class, that sarcastic, sparkly-eyed individual lit up the room. Never a bad day in Paul Vandergreet's world. Paul, hi, it's nice to see you again.
You too.
All right, who are you talking to?
I was going to fire a question at Vernon, but I feel like maybe Ricky and Jay might have something to add, so I'll just leave it open-ended. I'll just say about myself, I've really had to adapt, reinvent myself in the past few years. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, when you're heading into retirement, what was your mindset? What helped you transition when you know that this huge aspect of your life just isn't going to be there anymore?
Ricky, you want to start?
Sorry, I lost it there for a sec. What was the question again?
So I'm just wondering, when you're heading into retirement, what was your mindset like, and what helped you transition when just this huge aspect of your life that you've been involved with through your whole life just isn't going to be there anymore?
It was tough. It was tough to say those words that I'm retired. One, because I was looking at my age and I was like, no way is this over. Like, no way. And it was just, I had been thinking about it, but at the same time, I did not want to say it. I was like, there's no way. The game I grew up playing and I love with the passion, like, it's over. And I remember when I announced my retirement, I woke up that day, it was on New Year's Eve. And I said, you know what? It's done. I've done everything that I could do. It didn't end how I wanted it to end, but I told myself I have a story, and I was able to make a story, and especially coming out of East Los Angeles, and that made me very, very proud, because I know that I had and have inspired a generation of young kids in that area, that the big leagues is reachable, or whatever it is that you set yourself to aspire and dream of. You know, anything you put your mind into, it's achievable, and it's possible. So at the end of the day, I thought about it, and I was like, all right, I did enough, and I got to the big leagues, which was a huge dream of mine, and I accomplished things that I never thought I would accomplish at that level. And, you know, there's a little over 19,000 players that have played in the big leagues. And when you think of a number like that, it's crazy to me. And there's only a small percentage. And to sit back and say, you know what, I did it, I lived it, I'm satisfied with it. And now looking back at it, I mean, you know, there's no regrets in that. And I finally was able to say, all right, I'm going to pat you on the back, and I'm proud of you, Ricky, for all the stuff that you've gone through, and this is the stuff that you accomplished.
Freeze for a second, Paul, before everybody else responds. Self-coaching, guys. You have to be your own champion. You know, I can just see Ricky patting himself on the back. So important, self-coaching. Great question. Love it. Jay Stenhouse, where are you in that thinking process?
Well, for me, I spent 34 years working for the Blue Jays, starting in grade 9. And it became something that, oh, he's the Blue Jay guy. He's the Blue Jay guy. At hockey, I was the Blue Jay guy. I was coaching kids hockey. I'd have to leave for spring training and miss the playoffs. Everybody knew who I was, and it sort of became part of my identity. And when it was time to leave, that was a big shock. I had to really decompress from what I was doing. I had a bit of a challenge with myself in taking myself away from that, understanding my strengths, not just, and maybe I was being too humble and not looking at my contributions. I just figured I was playing a role on a team, and that's what anybody else would have done in the same spot. So I'm in that transition, and I'm getting better at that, and recognizing some of the talents, things that I brought different to that position that others didn't. And so in my transition, I'm still going. I'm not ready to retire. So I'm still working through that, and you know, I'm feeling good about it. I'm in a much better headspace than I was before.
You know, the transitions that you go through in life, you will go through multiple transitions. Paul knows this better than anybody. We have Vernon. Do you want to just talk about quickly? We have to wrap with Ricky and Vernon. They have to get off the call in about 8 minutes. Ricky, do you want to answer that? Or sorry, Vernon, do you want to answer that question quickly about transition, how hard it was, how you navigated through it?
Yeah, I think change can be difficult in many different ways. I think we've all been dealt different cards, and things have happened to us that we didn't expect, and how do we adapt? How do we change? How do we make the best out of a situation that we didn't see coming, or at the time we didn't see coming, and at some point it was inevitable. There's all of those things play into how we are able to process those situations. Paul, your situation is completely different than ours. How you deal with the setbacks that you've had, it shows strength. It shows your ability to take a bad hand that's been dealt and turn it into something, a winning hand. And those are things that we can all learn from and be better because of an example that you set. So the impact that you make on the people around you because of the way you handle yourself, despite whatever limitations you have, it's awesome. Those are things that impact people more than you know. For me, I never actually formally retired. I just stopped playing. Never announced my retirement. I played a game for a living. I was a kid that never had to grow up. So for me, not when I decided to stop playing, there was two reasons. My boys were 12 and 10 at the time. They needed dad to be home as they go through those difficult transitions and becoming a young man. And two, my body couldn't do what my mind wanted it to do. My mind, I thought I was 25. My body thought I was more like 45. So the frustrating part of playing the game when you can't physically do what you think you can, it made it really a comfortable decision in me stopping just stopping at that point and just moving on to the next chapter of my life. So I had a blast playing the game of baseball, but it also allowed me some things in life to where I could be around for my kids as they grew up and have no regrets. And I think if we can live life with enjoying the moment, not regretting, and hopefully not regretting some of the decisions that we made, then we can live a long and happy life.
So much of that hits home for me. So thanks, all you guys.
Definitely. Good talking to you,
All
Paul.
right. Vernon, Ricky, Jay, I know we had a couple of kids that we'll put them in the next session. The reality is this, Vernon, you bring sunshine to this world, your energy, your positivity, your intelligence, your kindness. It really helps change lives. And Ricky, just the comment about how, at the end of the day, you look back where you came from and you realize how much of an impact you have had on changing kids' lives. What an impact. What a glorious thing at the end of the day to be proud of. And like coaches like Eugenio and Joshua Campbell, how they every single day go out to the baseball diamond to make an impact on the Ben Adams of the world. It is so incredibly powerful. You never underestimate the power having an impact on one kid's life. And Jay Stenhouse, every single person that you interact with, every single time you have a conversation with anybody, you make them feel so special. And what a great, what a gift that is. So we got to wrap. Ricky's got to put kids to bed. Vernon's got kids that are worrying about him. Jay's on vacation. Eugenio needs to eat because he hasn't eaten. He's been out on the ball diamond all day. Joshua Campbell's been prepping for this. Ben Adams is like ready to go game and practice. Make a difference in the world, everybody. I'm so proud to know you. Thank you so much, District. Thank you so much, Art of Leadership. We are ready to wrap. Really appreciate you taking the time, you guys. Making a difference in the world of people makes a huge impact.